You've probably heard people say, after a certain age, relationships just aren't worth it anymore. But is that actually true? Or is it just something people say after they've been hurt, disappointed, or tired of trying? Because the reality is, dating after 50 or 60 isn't impossible. It's just different. And if you don't understand these differences, you can easily end up frustrated, drained, or completely closed off from something meaningful. So let's talk about the real reasons relationships feel harder at this stage of life, and more importantly, how to deal with them. First, emotional baggage. By the time someone reaches 50 or 60, they're not starting fresh. They've lived through relationships, breakups, losses, sometimes even decades of habits and patterns. And that history doesn't just disappear. It shows up in how they trust, how they communicate, and how quickly they open up. The mistake people make is expecting things to feel like they did in their 20s. But at this stage, connection takes a little more patience. The solution isn't to avoid relationships, it's to slow down. Give space for honesty. Don't rush emotional closeness. Let trust build naturally, not forcefully. Second, independence. After years of living life a certain way, people get used to their routines, their space, their control. And suddenly, letting someone else into that space feels uncomfortable. Not because they don't want connection, but because they don't want to lose themselves. This is where many relationships fail, because instead of building something flexible, people either become too rigid or too dependent. The balance is simple, but not easy. Keep your life, but make room for someone else in it. Not by giving everything up, but by adjusting just enough. Third, fear of being hurt again. At a younger age, people take risks without thinking too much. But later in life, every decision is filtered through past pain. What if it goes wrong again? What if I waste my time? What if I get attached and lose it? So instead of trying, people protect themselves by staying distant. But here's the truth. Avoiding risk doesn't protect you from pain. It just guarantees loneliness. The answer is not to shut down. It's to choose carefully. Be aware, but don't be closed. Fourth, unrealistic expectations. Some people want perfection. Others expect the same kind of passion they had decades ago. And when reality doesn't match that image, they walk away too quickly. But relationships at this stage are different. They're not built on excitement alone. They're built on compatibility, peace, and understanding. If you chase perfection, you'll miss something real. The solution is simple. Focus less on perfect and more on peaceful. Fifth, social and family pressure. At this age, relationships are not just about two people. There are families, children, past connections, and sometimes judgment from others. This creates hesitation. People start thinking, is it worth the complication? And sometimes they decide it's easier to stay alone. But here's something important. No one else is living your life. If a connection brings you peace and value, that matters more than opinions. Learn to set boundaries, not just with partners, but with everyone else too. Sixth, communication gaps. After years of different experiences, people think differently, they express differently, they expect differently, and when communication is not clear, misunderstandings grow quickly. The solution is not complicated, but it requires effort. Speak clearly, listen fully, don't assume, ask. Seventh, energy and priorities. At 20, relationships often revolve around excitement and discovery. At 50 or 60, priorities change. Peace matters more. Stability matters more. Time feels more valuable. And that's not a disadvantage, that's clarity. The key is to find someone whose priorities match yours. Not someone exciting for a moment, but someone compatible for the long run. And here's the deeper truth. The problem is not age. The problem is how people approach relationships at that age. If you carry fear, rigid thinking, and unrealistic expectations, you'll struggle. But if you bring awareness, patience, and emotional maturity, you actually have an advantage most younger people don't, because you understand yourself better. You know what matters and what doesn't. And that clarity can build something much stronger than anything built in youth. So no, it's not about avoiding relationships after 50 or 60. It's about approaching them differently, more calmly, more honestly, and more intentionally. Because connection doesn't expire with age, It just changes form. And if you understand that, you don't miss out. You build something real.